So it's that time for me to talk about Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise. I've done this in weekly takes before multiple times because of Top Gun Maverick, because of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. And we are back with the final reckoning. And this is purported to be the last film in the series. This is the 8th film in the Mission Impossible franchise. It's been Tom Cruise the whole way, 30 years of it. It couldn't be better. That's why it's great that it's ending now. Too many film franchises, TV series, just media franchises in general go on and on and on and on until they're just not good anymore. And no, I'm not actually talking about Fast and Furious. I like Fast and the Furious. It is really good at doing exactly what it does, what it intends to do, and that is be the campy, crappy, over-the-top action blockbuster that it is without remorse. And I do like that. However, there is actually hope that is going to go back a little bit back to its roots. Vin Diesel has kind of said that that's the case with what's upcoming in the franchise. So we'll see. Maybe it'll get better than it has been. But there's also a lot of franchises that do and should take themselves a little bit more seriously. That is not their intention, to be a fast, saga. And they have dragged themselves out to a point where the standard they once set and that they seem to want to live up to is no longer possible. Some things just go on longer than they need to. That's why it's great when you have franchises like James Bond, like some of the superhero franchises. I would say like Batman and Superman and things like that, where the torch gets passed to a new generation, and instead of having 12 Christian Bale Batman films and going far beyond the peak of the series, you have 3. You have a beginning, a middle, and end, and then it's over, right? And some people don't like Dark Knight Rises as much, for instance, but that's still a fantastic film. And that's what we're looking at here with Mission Impossible. The Final Reckoning is a fantastic film. Bottom to top, every standard, every way that you could. Storytelling, casting, production quality, progression of the characters, and the action set pieces, of course. Everything about this lives up to the standard that Mission Impossible has set as a film franchise, and is pretty much above everything else that's come out in the last 10 years. That's not a Tom Cruise production. Because that's the thing. The only way that you hit this bar when it comes to a film, especially in the action category, is if it was a Tom Cruise film. There's a couple exceptions here and there. For instance, going back a little bit further, but we're still in that same era. You're talking a franchise that's spanned 30 years and has continuously been the premier action franchise during that time frame. But if you go back a little bit further, you have films like Fury Road, right? And I loved Furiosa just a couple years ago, or that was last year actually. The only films that are ever challenging, though, Mission Impossible when it comes to that like mind share for great action film franchises, is other Tom Cruise productions like Top Gun Maverick. And Top Gun Maverick set that bar higher, and then the last couple Mission Impossibles had to reach it as well. This is a lot of glazing here, which I don't care. But Tom Cruise's motivations to come out here and do right by the audience. The fact that he's always done that, but the fact that he's become so vocal about it, it's become such a motivator for him. Especially since the COVID era, when he was working on Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and the things that he went through. This guy was pounding the tables, on the phones, talking to actual governments, to studios, distributors, the theater chains, I believe insurers, everybody he could possibly be in contact with to push and get films done. Not just his own, but to keep the industry moving forward in an era when it could have easily collapsed and everything would be done when it came to the cinema experience, seeing movies on the big screen. And then when Top Gun Maverick came out and exemplified that and said, this is why you go to the movies, And now everything else is kind of going, okay, so how do we replicate that on some level? Obviously not at that level, but you know, you have movies like F1 coming out with Brad Pitt that 100%, it's being done in a way that it is because of Maverick, because of Mission Impossible, because of Tom Cruise. Joseph Kosinski is directing it. That was the director of Maverick. Tom Cruise basically picked him because of the job they did on Oblivion together, and then kind of pushed him to up the bar there as well. So anyways, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, fantastic ending to the series. Tom Cruise is the president of movies, and you should check out whatever he's working on next, and especially this current franchise. Hey guys, I just wanted to drop a quick note about my first ever sponsor. That would be Dubby Energy. Check out Dubby.gg and use code RIVALINDIGO for 10% off your order and help me out. It's really good stuff. Jitterless energy, no sugar, no artificial dyes, sweeteners, anything of that sort. It's really helped me get away from drinking soda as much, and I do in fact love my Mountain Dew. Check it out. Let me know what you think. It's good stuff. I wouldn't be bringing this up if I didn't believe in it and use it myself. So this term has been thrown around for a while now. I mean, it's not new. We're talking the last couple years at least, since AI generators have become a lot more mainstream and accessible to the public, whether that's through things like Grok on Twitter or the plethora of other applications and websites you can go to generate artwork, logos, music, you know, voices, all these kinds of things. I mean, the Screen Actors Guild actually held a strike that, among other things, one of the things they were looking for was protections against AI usage, right? I cannot stand, in this case, the Luddites' perspective about AI and the cheap anime profile pictures out there, which, you know what? It's not specifically anime profile pictures, because there's other people, and there's lots of people who use those that I'm fine with. I think they're cool. But it just a lot of it seems to be them that throw the term AI slop around. And it's like, what do you actually mean? The AI that is being used, oftentimes, it's just a tool. And it's using other people's stuff. It's scraping the internet for actual artist work and blah, blah, blah. Many of them are not, in fact, doing that. They may be trained off of those things. And so they know, like, specific concepts, essentially. There's certain ones out there that are literally built from the ground up to use things that are either not copyright written or that are not intellectual property of some sort. Regardless of all that, AI is a tool. And I do not believe in replacing people, right? But so many of the people that are complaining about this are not actual artists. Actual artists know the value of their work and know that the fact that they can still either sell their product or promote their artistry, right? That's actual artists. Most actual artists I've ever encountered or known or talked about don't have this weird obsession with AI when it comes to making stuff. It's this community, this subgroup of commission artists on the internet, which is a bunch of like late teen to 20 something dyed hair weirdos usually that took like some kind of an art class in high school or digital art class online or something, and they have a drawing pad and a stylus, and they take a couple $100s from somebody and they spend 3 years having emotional breakdowns or not being able to afford the Starbucks that they use the money for. Like, it's crazy. And then they give you some kind of stupid looking furry crap. Like that I don't care. I just don't care. The fact that AI gives people who have the ability to use words as descriptors to build imagery You know, the people that are actually succeeding with this stuff and making really crazy, really awesome artwork. And I'm not even like trying to like compliment myself here, but even myself, I grew up a writer. No, I cannot draw, right? But most of the people complaining about AI also cannot draw. They are garbage. And they take forever to make this quote unquote product and try to sell it to people 3 years after they asked for it, and they're in queue behind 10 other people that never get their product. But I digress. The concept of using AI as a tool still requires a type of artistry, still requires a type of human mind power. It's just a tool. So if you want to give up Photoshop, if you want to give up paint.net, if you want to give up any kind of digital tool you have, go right ahead. I want to see you go back to taking your crap and smearing it on cave walls so that you're not making digital slop. There's a certain level of we need to regulate certain things and we need to control the usage of certain things that can be dangerous or cause us problems as a society. But there's also the extent of taking tools away from ourselves that can better us or give us better options. And I'm just not on board with that. Sports topic here. We're talking about college football. We're talking about the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. And in general, the power conferences are kind of bad like this, but the SEC is the worst of them. There's also the Big Ten, there's the ACC, the Big 12, which is essentially like everybody else's leftovers. But anyways, the power conferences are all a problem, or what they call power conferences. They're the money conferences, the media control conferences. But the SEC is the king of the worst, right? The SEC, and along with the Big Ten, but in particular, we're covering the SEC because they also have the worst fans about this stuff and the worst commentators about these subject. They essentially hate football. They hate everything that college football has ever been and stood for. The access to success and the ability for different communities across this country, because the United States of America, North America in general, whatever, is absolutely overflowing with football talent. Like it's unbelievable. There are hundreds of college football teams combined between the FCS level, the championship series, and the FBS level, the bowl series, which is what most people are familiar with. But the FCS has incredible talent and powerhouses and teams that could compete with the FBS as well. It's mostly a money problem. It's not a talent problem. It's not a coaching problem. It's not a skill issue. It's not that the support for the programs and the communities aren't there. They're just smaller communities. And they don't get access to the media and the money and stuff that these bigger conferences do. But we are overflowing with football talent in this country, from the high school level, the college level, and the pro levels. There's, besides the NFL, there are competing leagues out there. There's the United Football League or whatever, which essentially, when you have too many players for the NFL, they end up there, right? You have the Canadian Football League up north. Then you have the multiple arena, like indoor football leagues. There's the Arena Football League, there's the Indoor Football League, and there's like another one as well. There is an incredible amount of football talent and desire in this country. And you're telling me that a dozen teams in the southeastern area of the U.S. are the only ones with a high level of talent, capability, coaching, whatever. It's kind of ridiculous. But that's what they would like you to believe. And they'd like you to believe it's always been the case and always will be the case. The fact is, the SEC is like a walled garden. They play amongst themselves. They don't like to play outside of the conference, and then they schedule themselves like FCS level cupcake teams to pad their resume or pad their win total when they need it. And then they tell you when they lose to lower quality programs from their own conference. Yeah, but it's a loss to an SEC team. Okay, but that's an SEC team with 3 wins, and you lost to them. You're supposed to be that much better than everyone. And then when they beat the cupcake teams from the SEC, yeah, but it was an SEC team. Yeah, but they're the cupcake team. You're supposed to beat them. Nobody expected you to lose to them until you did, and then you don't want that to count either. And then they want to control the entire postseason format of college football and who gets access to it, and hand themselves, and also the Big Ten, but like hand themselves an incredible amount of auto bids. Essentially, they want half their conference making the college football playoffs every year, even though the teams that did represent them either got their asses handed to them or got knocked out anyways. They didn't even compete for national championships. And I don't want to hear about Texas. Texas just joined the SEC. They were not an SEC-built program. They will be over the next few years, sure. But Texas, really? They were not an SEC team. Everything that they are now came from where they were in the past. It's the same issue I have when people talk about Boise State joining the new Pac-12, and along like Washington State University and Oregon State University. And people are acting like Washington State and Oregon State were not just last year part of a power conference that included teams like the University of Oregon, the Ducks, Colorado, that everybody seems to love, the University of Colorado. And then you also had University of Washington, and wasn't Arizona State part of that? Like there's so many different teams that were once part of the Pac-12 that went elsewhere, and people are acting like these two don't count now. And then Boise State and the decent programs from the Mountain West are joining them, along with hopefully others soon. Either way, there is not the skill, talent, coaching disparity that people think there is in college football. The SEC wants you to think that because it means money and control. Don't let them control you.